Thank you for tuning into our podcast, Canal Days, What Life is Like in the Industrial Connecticut River Valley of Massachusetts. I'm your host, Carrie, and joining us today is the creator of the Historical Tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Camus. He personally offers and leads public and private tours, as well as presentations of historical sites within communities throughout the state of Massachusetts. Currently, the communities he has chosen to focus on this year are Holyoke, Chicopee, South Hadley, and East Hampton, and also Granby and Amherst as well. This tour spotlight the local canals, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, as well as various parks, streets, and selected historical houses within each community. In today's episode, we'll be discussing the Hampden County Memorial Bridge, located in Springfield, Massachusetts. So, what is the top of the bridge?
Alright, you got ornamentation up there, and you can tell you're on the Springfield Bridge by its beautiful ornamentation. Very few communities do this. So other bridges across the Connecticut River, you don't have this beautiful touch put in. But of course, Springfield, 100 years ago, was a very successful city. They wanted to show off of it. And one way of showing off, of course, is have good architecture, including on the bridges themselves. And they did just that. So there's a lot of ways of looking at these bridges. You can go in a canoe and kayak or a boat down below and look up. You can go right on to the bridge itself and walk and appreciate it. And there's a lot to appreciate if you're going at a slow pace, like a walk. And that's what we're going to go into today. And we're going to talk about the plaques. There's two different kinds. There's one with text and the other with names. And also we're going to talk about what's on the up ramps on both sides. Anything special there? Sure, we'll talk about that. And then what might its future be? You know very well when bridges get older, sometimes they have to be taken down and replaced, right? And this bridge is from 1922, which means it's 102 years old this year. And sure, it's had work on it, both underneath and atop, but bridges do not last forever. Sometimes they need to be replaced. So let's have fun going over this bridge.
And what plaques are on the bridge?
Okay, now this bridge is a memorial bridge. Remember the name of it. It includes the word memorial and includes the word Hampden County. Okay, so what is it? Well, it memorializes the men that have gone off to any war and from Hampden County and served Hampden County. And that's a lot of wars, of course. The American Revolutionary War, War of 1812, the Civil War, both World War, Vietnam War, Korean War. Now remember, this bridge is from 1922. So what war is closest to? All right, it's closest to World War I. So officially, it's a bridge that commemorates the men from Hampden County that died for the United States during World War I. That's what it honors. But also there are plaques up there that talk about later wars, and there's plaques that talk about earlier wars. All right. For instance, one big plaque talks about the Civil War itself, and a lot is described there. But later wars, they have another plaque for you, and this is wonderful to have such a very expensive and obvious structure devoted to the men of Hampden County is a wonderful gift to those men. And around the city, all the cities and towns of Hampden County, they have outdoor and indoor memorial plaques with these men's name on it, especially Springfield. And this is a good way to give a gift to all of those men and, of course, all their families and descendants.
And really quick, before we continue with the rest of our interview, just to fill our listeners in, if you want to sign up for any of his various tours or find out more information, you can check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org. And then you can find videos and podcasts of the stops along each of his tours, as well as photos and text of the historical sites throughout as well. And for private tours and other inquiries, you can email him directly at bobcat4214, and his tours make for fun, educational outdoor activities for families and group parties. So, getting back to our interview, what is around the bridge area?
All right. Around the bridge, you have nowadays the Springfield River Walkway, and this is a walkway that extends almost the entire length of a Springfield's edge along the Connecticut River. And that walkway has a lot going for it. You can spend a couple hours on this walkway appreciating bike riding or running, walking. And it goes high up to the north, up to a park up there, and then it goes down to the south, to the South End Bridge. All right, towards the north it goes to North End Bridge, and in the middle you can get right on from Columbus Avenue onto the Hampden County Memorial Bridge. Okay, so that's one great thing. And when you're on there, it includes, for instance, the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. So, thank goodness, this bridge has right next to it a very, very important structure. Now, what else? Well, remember also that this spans two sides of the Connecticut River. The community to the west is West Springfield, and this leads to a very important part of West Springfield. Of course, a lot of West Springfield is also right along the river. And so a lot of churches and cemeteries are on the other side. Nothing as beautiful just yet as you're going to find on the Springfield side. And also there's many other things, especially if you walk, you get to appreciate them, but nothing is better than just looking up or down the Connecticut River itself. During the daytime hours, you probably see a lot of boats out there, but the scenic views are incredible. Whether towards the north, where you can see the bend in the Connecticut River, you can see a bit of the Mountain Range in the distance, or towards the south, where you can see the South End Bridge from this bridge. And it's all a great view as long as you get out to walk. If you just drive in your car, you're probably not going to see any of this.
And what will its future be like?
Well, I did mention it's getting on in years, 102 years old. It's a very beautiful bridge. Will they be able to maintain it fully? Right? Will they have to just take this bridge totally out at some point? Sure, they probably would. Could they maintain some of the architectural features of it? It's an arched bridge, and that has a lot of pressure on it. And these beautiful, I would call spires, they're gorgeous. They have lights on the very top of them, very symbolic lights. And the columns themselves have a lot of symbolism to do with wars, for instance. One of the spires upwards has a piece that has a lot of spikes coming out of it. That also corresponds to wars. Maybe they can fix some of the lower level lights, the one closer to the ground level, and maybe they can give it a new paint job. But otherwise, our best hope is that somehow, if it's talking about the ornamentation on top, get a Community Preservation Act from Springfield. And if you're talking about underneath, someday you're going to need a new bridge. And hopefully the one they put in will be just as nice as this one.
And thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours and historical topics of your expertise. Thank you for tuning into our podcast, Canal Days, What Life is Like in the Industrial Connecticut River Valley of Massachusetts. I am your host, Carrie, and joining us today is Holyoke's very own local historian and creator of the historical tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Como. He personally offers and leads public and private tours, as well as presentations of historical sites within communities throughout the state of Massachusetts. Currently, the communities he has chosen to focus on this year are Holyoke, Chicopee, South Hadley, and East Hampton, and also Granby and Amherst as well. His tours spotlight the local canals, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, as well as various parks, streets, and selected historical houses within each community. In today's episode, we'll be discussing the North End Bridge, located in Springfield, Massachusetts. So what ornamentation is on the bridge?
There's some beautiful ornamentation like on the Memorial Bridge for Springfield, and we're certainly going to be talking about this. We're also going to be talking to who the bridge is actually officially named after. Its official name is slightly different from North End Bridge. And then what's around this bridge on both sides of the river. Of course, it spans from Springfield into West Springfield, Massachusetts. And then what will its future be like? And this bridge here was made in the year 1925. It's now the year 2024, so next year is the 100th anniversary of this bridge. It's found at the end of Park Avenue, which is Route 20A. And what we're learning today is how it might be similar or different from the other bridges in Springfield. All right. Now, one thing that has similar to Memorial Bridge, that they're both on the Springfield River walkway. So we'll talk about that along the way. All right. So the ornamentation, it has columns. They're not as big and gorgeous as the Memorial Bridge columns, and they only have them right at the beginning, but they're still there and they're still important. They look to be made out of granite, white granite, in fact, and they have a plaque on them, and they have ornamentations on the top. They have lights, and there's two on each of the four corners, so a total 8. So gorgeous to see these. Otherwise, in the middle of the bridge itself, you don't have that. And the bridge is held up by, I think, 5 buttresses underneath, which makes it a 6-span bridge itself. And it does have quite a bit around it. It also makes it a gorgeous look. And of course, being on the Connecticut River makes a gorgeous landscape as you look around.
And who is Arthur McKenna?
Now, the bridge itself is named the Arthur J. McKenna Bridge. Okay, but people still call it the North End Bridge. Now, it was renamed that in 1985, and there's a plaque to him on the Springfield side, given to the bridge by Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and it reads, "A self-sacrificing and devoted public servant, son of Massachusetts, whose dedication over many years improved our infrastructure, our roadways and bridges," right? And it goes on and talks about his life, courage, and his family life, and how much he always, in his job, wanted to make things safer for everyone. He was a very nice person, and it says that grateful Commonwealth has this commemorated and dedicated to him and named the bridge after him. All right, so it's quite a nice plaque, and I've put a picture of the plaque up for you to read through. Totally, I just read through about a third of it. So hopefully you can get to know him better and understand why they named it after him by his life story.
And really quick, before we continue with the rest of our interview, just to fill our listeners in, if you want to find out more information or sign up for any of his various tours, you can check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org. And there you can find videos and podcasts of the stops along each of his tours, as well as photos and text of historical sites throughout as well. And for private tours and other inquiries, you can email him directly at bobcat4214, and his tours make for fun, educational, outdoor activities for families and group parties. So getting back to our interview, what is around the bridge?
Around the bridge, there is the Springfield River walkway. Its entire length through Springfield has 3 bridges on it: the South End Bridge, North End Bridge, and Memorial Bridge. All right, and this, I have a map or a link to it, and you can walk even further north than the North End Bridge. And this pathway has a similar one in Chicopee, and someday they will be connected to each other. It also has a similar one in Agawam by going over the South End Bridge, and it has a picture of this walkway right near the end of this North End Bridge for you. Okay, and there's a little park here, not as big as park as the one a little slightly south of the Memorial Bridge, but at least they have the park there, and they have a big arch telling you how to get in to the walkway area. And it tells you what used to be here by 2 large posters. Hamden Park used to be around this area, and lots of fancy boats used to go up here showing off. Also, there's the Pioneer Valley Riverfront Club right near this walkway. And so they have a lot, including an outdoor pavilion, and they have a place to launch boats down there. So there's a lot to do on the Springfield side. On the West Springfield side, you have the busiest part of West Springfield. And by going over the bridge, you're right into the area where a lot of the old churches of West Springfield are, a lot of the old businesses and bigger streets, and a lot of the old cemeteries. This was the populated place of West Springfield right from the start of the settlement of West Springfield 300 years ago. And there's always been either a ferry or bridges at this point, and lately they have 3 replacement bridges about 100 years old.
And what will the future be like?
Well, it's getting on to be 100 years that this bridge is in existence, and so for that reason, who knows how long it's going to last. And again, they made it beautiful on the outsides. The insides of the bridge are okay. They can always fix it very easily. It's not a very sophisticated bridge. They can always fix the buttresses. They can always change the new roadway that's up there. It might take a year and have to close the bridge for a year, but they can do it. Now, the pillars or columns that are on here might need repair at some point. They're getting also be 100 years old. But a Community Preservation Act in Springfield, which is a very active community for historical preservation, might help with these columns at some point. They do have nice lights on the very top of them, so it's a nice bridge even at nighttime, and hopefully it will last for you.
And thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours and historical topics of your expertise. And we want to thank our listeners for tuning in. And you can check out a large selection of our other podcasts on his website as well as on SoundCloud.com.